I'm John Atack.
I'm Sam Atack.
This is an Opening Minds presentation. We're going to talk about something that Sam knows nothing about.
Yes, blood feuds.
Blood feuds. He knows what it's called.
Yep, don't know what it means.
But he doesn't know what it means. The first recorded utterance of a Cherokee, who are peoples of the southern Iroquois, was to a conquistador. And Cherokee said, my people live to fight war. And the Cherokee would be one of the most rapidly transforming people. I read a lot about them, because I really admire them. The Trail of Tears and various, read the myths of the Cherokee. I read about them because I was writing a novel about Jimi Hendrix, and Jimi Hendrix was an eighth blood Cherokee.
Which I'm reading at the moment, and it's quite good.
Oh, if you like that kind of thing. It's called
Voodoo
Child's Slight Return. And it is a novel in which Jimi Hendrix slightly returns somewhat later. So I read 14 biographies of Jimi Hendrix, books about the blues, but I also read about the Cherokee, and I became really quite fascinated by this admirable people. And the point where they transformed their society from being a warlike society. Friedrich Engels, the co-founder of communism, the man who paid for Karl Marx to spend 17 years researching Das Kapital, industrialist, and by all accounts quite a decent man who looked after his workers. But Engels wrote to say that matriarchal society was far preferable to patriarchal societies in which women ruled. And the example he gave was the Iroquois people. He was talking about the northern Iroquois, the Seneca, Oneida, Mohawk, what have you, 5 tribes, 6 tribes. And he didn't know what he was talking about, because the reality is that although they were indeed governed by women, including war chiefs who were women, they had a mad thing about torture. They were really keen on it.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
And so these are societies that were warlike, and this is what they did. Now, this is absolutely not true of all first Americans. Some of the peoples were very peaceful and lovely. But these were people who fought war, and their honour was based upon it. And we see a lot of this in Western culture, in Asian culture, in any culture wherever you go, this notion of glory and warfare. And this is tied into the blood feud, or vendetta, as it's called in Sicily. And the idea is that we exist as a nation, we exist as a group of people, and we're better than you are, basically, because we're us. And an incredible transformation happened through the 18th and 19th century, where it used to be that you basically had to go to war because you were forced to go to war by the king.
Yeah.
And king, by the way, is another word for dictator. And this seems to be...
You may not know that.
Or tyrant. This, that democracy doesn't really accept the idea that somebody can say, I think you ought to go and kill all those people over there. And you say, why is that? And you say, right, I'm going to kill you too.
Yeah, how dare you
question my... So these autocrats, authoritarians, bullies, tyrants, kings, would force people to go and fight wars. And then some clever wag came up with the notion, probably in the 17th century, of nation. Now, rather than belonging and being a possession of the king, who was a real person, by the way, you could now belong to a nation, and you could fight for the nation. My country, wrong or right. Praise God and pass the ammunition. That we could have people going out and dying for an abstract concept, which was a nation. And when you look at Europe, you get a very distinct idea of what nations are. They're things that change every 10 minutes. 1923, bang, Czechoslovakia exists. Now it doesn't. It's the Czech Republic and the Slovak Republic. What happened to Transylvania? All the vampires went there. The boundaries of countries, if you look at Alsace-Lorraine and how they moved between France and Germany, or how Burgundy and the Languedoc were absorbed into France, how Italy waited for Garibaldi, who was also the inventor of a little biscuit, which I don't particularly like, but gluten intolerant anyway, so I can't eat them. That Garibaldi came about and said about unifying Italy into a country, which in fact nobody had ever done before. And this is a very popular sport. And if we add in this notion of the blood feud, then what happens is we hate you because you did this. So,
Yeah.
well, this is a bit of history for you. The Versailles Treaty, largely dominated by Tycho Clemenceau, the French president, former journalist and best friend of Claude Monet.
Nice.
He was very determined he was going to get his own back on the Germans. And so they were going to have to pay an enormous amount of money in reparations. Your history books may not tell you that the Prussians, when they invaded France in 1870, demanded huge reparations from the French for making them have to go and stomp all over Paris. But when Napoleon beat the Prussians at the Battle of Jena in 1806, he demanded reparations.
Common theme. Yeah.
The blood feud, the vendetta, is this idea that just as with the Cherokee came to a point where they realized that they could not withstand the amount of, let's face it, great unwashed Europeans who were pouring into their lands. That there were way too many of them, and their weapons were way too good. And so they, just as their northern cousins had done, they buried the hatchet. They decided that they would not encourage war. They wouldn't study war no more, as the song goes. Ain't going to study war no more. They would turn to agriculture, and they invented the most delicious tomato in the world, which is the Cherokee chocolate. There's also Cherokee purple. We haven't managed to get any of those yet, but these tomatoes are just wonderful. They became, they devised a community and a culture that could successfully accommodate Europeans, and then the Europeans drove them on the Trail of Tears, killing a quarter of them along the way in 1854, I think.
1854.
Somewhere around that. But the point was that they had dropped the blood feud. They had stopped saying, those people are my enemies. I hate those Islams, or I hate those Christians, or I hate those Buddhists, or I hate those white people, or I hate those Chinese people, or I hate those people who are making jokes all together, because they are the worst and we should be serious. That sense of revenge, I think, is what differentiates pro-social from antisocial people. It is horrifying the extent to which people want to get people back and want to hurt them. On balance with that is, if somebody hurt my son Sam, I would probably kill them. So, on a personal basis, this is, so leave him alone. He didn't mean it, he couldn't help it. It's genetic. But if you are to have a civilization, if we as human beings are to survive into future generations in an environment that is not absolutely polluted with depleted uranium shells, which we used in Iraq, with white phosphorus, which is used by the Israeli army, with all of the nasty, toxic things that warfare creates, and the mad use of fossil fuels that's generated. If we're going to stop doing that, we have to get past this idea of the blood feud. We have to get past this idea of killing one another, and we have to start being a little bit nicer all the way around. Is there anything to add to that, do you think?
To add to that, I now understand what blood feud is, and I forgive you.
Oh, what a wonderful thing to be forgiven. And we forgive most of you. Except for the ones of you who haven't subscribed, of course. And you will be cast into the outer darkness. I'm very sorry.
With the comedians.
Along with the comedians.
Especially Stuart Lee.
We don't want any comedy around here, because comedy makes people laugh. And that's enjoyable.
Takes away from the seriousness of life.
And I think that's all I have to say about that. I've been John Atack.
I've been Sam Atack.
And this has been an Opening Minds presentation about blood feuds. Thank you.